things. Yes, there is probably going to be a $150 to $200 million cleanup of the port, or excuse me, of the harbor at some point, probably in the lifetime of some of the younger people in the room. Now, they've been studying it for 10 to 15 years. They'll probably study it another 10, 15 years. And when all of the businesses that were responsible for it are no longer in business or in bankruptcy or whatever, then they'll start cleaning it. But my question is, why haven't we gone after the polluters to clean up these waters that they polluted instead of putting it on the backs of all of these taxpayers? I didn't put any toluene in that bay. Did you? So let's go back on the insurers or the industries that actually did the pollution and hold them up and turn them upside down and take some money out of them before you come after the taxpayers here. Now, one thing I want to, this is my first criticism of the city, and more specifically the city attorney. Whenever they wanted to put us on the list of these potentially liable partners, which means they grouped us in and said, okay, you're one of the responsible people, and it's just going to be a decision about how much you're going to have to pay. Well, that, at the point that they said you're going to be a potentially liable partner, was the time to put your foot down and say, no way, prove it. They should have started fighting that fight a long time ago instead of going ahead and accepting the city and the residents as a potentially liable partner, because we didn't make much off of that. The pollution that went in there, the people that had jobs, that's great, but they're supposed to be keeping the harbor clean and pure for the future generations. So that's a pet peeve I have, is us being lumped in as a potentially liable partner before they had any proof of it. So anyway, here comes Coleen McAleer. She is the newest member of the Port Commission, and I want all of you to join with me in inviting her to do a monthly article for the Port of Call called the Port Report, and that way all of us can stay informed about what's going on out there, because thus far I have no idea what's going on out there.
So thank you, Dale, for inviting me, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone. I'm the East End Commissioner, and thank you. East End Commissioner, and my background is in commercial real estate and business consulting with small businesses in this county and obviously counties to the east. And I was on staff at the port for a couple years, and I was really passionate to go there. I was watching business after business struggle, and I felt, I was kind of half joked saying I might as well go work for hospice. I'm just constantly telling people bad news, and people are crying in my office. You know, and this is so depressing. Who's doing something about this local economy? And you know, it's not the county, it's not the cities that have that responsibility. It is the Port Authority. So took a job there, and I worked there a little over 2 years, and I was the person that filed the whistleblower complaint about the leases and things that were going on there. I know I'm not a great politician because I'm not good at the high level policy stuff. I get down into the weeds, and I'm an executor, and so I got to keep my hands off of all that, and it's frustrating for me because I want to take it over and do it myself, and that's not the role that I have anymore. But so we're doing some really great things. The Composite Recycling Technology Center is one I think that has the potential of being transformative for our community potentially. And then we're redeveloping the Pen Ply facility. And what I ask of you is to be involved. We are at this point coming up with a 5-year strategic plan, the vision for our port. Our port, in case you don't know, we operate 2 marinas, 2 airports, 6 marine terminals, about 1,400 acres of property and buildings, about 82 different lease areas. And we also have a log yard, we have a boat yard, and now we're adding this marine trades area that's basically the travel lift pier and encompasses the boat yard. So we have an incredibly unique asset with the deepwater port, and I want to leverage that to the hilt. And so through this strategic planning process with the very high level goals, we've identified basically 4 areas with the economy and jobs. What kind of impact are we going to have? Outreach with our our constituents and our stakeholders and the community in general, revenues, and the environment. And so we've got these preliminary targets with SMART metrics being, we will create X many jobs in 5 years. And I want to hold the port accountable. If we don't do a good job, don't re-elect your commissioners, and expect not only that, but expect new leadership at the executive level. Because if we're not delivering, you deserve better leadership. And so I want to hold our port accountable so it delivers to the constituents and the citizens of this county that deserve real progress and real jobs and real businesses being here. So I'm very passionate about that, and I'm trying to chill out because my fellow commissioners think I'm too much of a rabble-rouser and I'm not being real effective with them when I take that more aggressive approach. But as an example, how many of you have operated a business, a small business? Yeah, I see some hands here. So what kind of rate of return, assuming you're not just service, but what kind of rate of return on your assets are you looking for every year, you hoping to achieve? For me, the benchmark's usually 6 to 8%. And so our port is a business. We don't build roads. We don't operate court systems, anything like that. We compete with a lot of private enterprise. But we do so in trust. And we do so that it's a level playing field. And so we have $88 million worth of depreciated assets. And if you're thinking about, okay, 6 to 8% is the rate of return you'd expect, but consider though also that we don't have to pay federal income taxes. So you bump that up a bit, the 6 to 8%. We also don't have to pay property taxes for our overhead where we use, for our port buildings and for property that's not leased. And we also receive $1.4 million worth of tax money. Property taxes we receive every year, free money, to little cushion. It's nice. Makes running a business pretty easy. And we also get around $2 million worth of grants every year, sometimes as much as $4 million. So in that realm, what kind of rate of return on our assets would you expect to see? I didn't vote with my fellow commissioners because I looked at it from this perspective, and so I did not vote for the budget, and I should have been more vocal, and that was a failure on my part. And now I've been more vocal about this, and I know we won't do this again, but for 2015, we approved a deficit, a $254,000 deficit. And it just shocks me that that's the acceptable situation. And so I want to put it out to the public that we should be having we should expect our port to have a positive net operating income. It's not that tough, we have a monopoly in a lot of areas, and we should be able to do a lot better. Right now we have 9 vacant buildings, and we have virtually no marketing plan for them. And I'm trying to drive excellence, but it's got to take leadership, and it's got to be that we're willing to have those tough, hard conversations rather than the platitudes and the status quo. So I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you, and I hope you become involved through this strategic planning process that we're going to have. We're going to have a lot of outreach meetings. Have your voice heard, and talk about what you expect from your port, because you're paying us property taxes every year. Thanks. No, Commissioner Calhoun has said that he's not running again.
So unless somebody runs against Lee, he's going to...
I've heard Connie Bouvet from Joyce has said that she plans on...
She's the manager of the Crescent Water District.
Yes. I think she was. I don't know that she still is. Okay. And an alpaca farm owner, apparently. Yes?
Could you give us a little follow-up on all that kerfluffle around what the county commissioners are doing, and then suddenly they met with the port for half an hour one morning, and there was a picture in the paper, and haven't heard anything since. And since you're the only mandated governmental body that does economic development, what can you fill in some of the holes?
Okay, from my perspective.
Okay, sure.
So yes, the port is a county-wide economic development entity. We are chartered by the state statute to do just that.
Right.
We have a lot of powers that cities and counties don't have. And Commissioner Chapman, wanted to have the discussion about how about the port being the associate development office that is contracted with the state. It's only like $52,000 a year, but that would basically identify the port as the entity in the county that's responsible for economic development across the county and the connection with the state. There are 4 different ports in this state that are the ADOs, have the contract with the Department of Commerce, and so Commissioner Chapman and Commissioner Hallett wanted to have that discussion, talk about the pros and cons of it. And you know, part of the issue is we are the Port of Port Angeles. We're not the Port of Clallam County. And so Sequim and Forks don't feel that they get fair representation if the economic development body was underneath the Port Commission. And so that's been a challenge. I'm East Side District Commissioner. I want to ensure that their concerns and issues are heard and dealt with. And so this EDC body has made entities across the county feel more comfortable that they'll have a seat at the table. So with the port, the 3 commissioners cannot delegate authority to another body. So it would only be an advisory board that would be the EDC basically, or an Economic Development Advisory Board, and truly the port commissioners would have final say on budgets, etc. And so people from Sequim and Forks don't feel comfortable that their capacity would only be as an advisory body rather than a board that has official ability to make decisions about strategic direction and the budget. So we are still having that conversation this year. Every 2 years, I understand it, the county commissioners determine, and you could speak to this better, but determine which body will be the ADO from the state, and they have determined it's the EDC, and so it would require a change in that. And right now, I know the county commissioners appropriated $150,000 for economic development, and we'll see. I assume that's going to go to the EDC, whether that funds 1 or 2 people, that's up to the board, I believe. But the 3 cities and the port have not signed the contract with the EDC because the scope of work, the work plan, was basically missing, and so we've been developing that, and we will sign it when it's all been fleshed out and it's a good plan going forward. That's something I've been advocating for with that board since last June. That if we're going to do this, we need a plan, a specific plan with job descriptions, with skill sets, etc., etc. But I was 1 vote of 28 and I didn't influence that body to move in that direction.
Thank you.
Yes.
Coleen, what do you think yourself of Commissioner Hallett's proposal? I know what you said about people on the east and west end feeling like they might be left out. The fact is that the port's area of coverage is the entire county. So I mean, do you personally think that the port could serve in that role and do a good job with it? Because earlier you talked about accountability and about how you all are elected officials and you're accountable. And we should hold you accountable.
Yep.
Well, doesn't that seem to answer maybe all of the questions that people have about the EDC?
And it's a valid point, absolutely. I look at what the port's doing right now and all the different business lines we're in and where we could be doing, where I would love to see us doing so much more. And we got really nice, good people at the port, but you know, they're getting paid 3 to 5 times the average salary in this county. And so I expect 3 to 5 times more than the average. And I think my personal opinion, but I may be swayed, but today my personal opinion is that we'd be most effective if we're focusing on improving what we're doing today and figuring out, why do we do what we do? I mean, I've said this and I know people in Sequim hate it. Why do we own the John Wayne Marina? What jobs is that creating? Why do we own the CQ airport? What jobs is that creating? It's not making us money. It's actually after you put aside reserves, it's a deficit basically. So if we sold that off and protected the asset and said that we'll keep the boat launch ramp public, you have to keep the park public. If we sold that off to a private entity and they still operated, it's still there. Yeah, rates may increase, but I look at, okay, most of the people at the John Wayne Marina, if they can afford a nice boat, you know, I'm okay with that personally. And so what could we do if we sold that for $10 million? What could we do with that $10 million to improve our economy? What kind of infrastructure could we put in to the east side of the county or across the county? What could we do with that? And I think we could take that asset, that, you know, the $10 million, and put it into a program or a project that could deliver so much more. And so I think we should focus on things like that first and foremost. And we do have a director of business development. She's exceptional. She came from Pacific Northwest National Labs. She's running this whole composite recycling technology program that's working with aerospace companies and colleges and universities. And I think but she is overwhelmed with that project, you know, working 80-hour weeks and really trying to make it successful. So I worry about taking on more at this point until we go through a culture change of, hey, you know, you need to deliver on your promises, and if not, there's consequences. And it's not that, you know, we are a business, we run, you know, all these different business lines, but it's this feeling that we're safe and our jobs would never be at stake. And I want them to deliver and there to be consequences if they don't deliver. And right now I don't feel that exists. So I probably went on too much about that, but
I'm still not sure of the answer to my question.
I guess the bottom line is I think we should focus on what we're supposed to be doing first and foremost. Once we are doing a better job with that, then I think we could take on more. But I just worry that we need really strong leadership before we take on another project.
You're here.
Yes.
A quick one. The U.S. Navy has some rather large plans for enhanced and enlarged facilities on the East Hook. Is the Port Commission involved in that?
No.
And who is making that decision? Do you have any?
And that's the Navy the Navy has been our tenant since 2006, and it's unfortunate that we didn't secure them. There's nothing better than having a federal tenant. You know, they pay on time, and you know, with the military, I would love to see that money stay here. We were getting about $85,000 worth of revenue from them annually, but now they're going to spend about $40 million on the project, you know, out at Edith's Hook, and we lose our revenue, and there's all sorts of, 40 million may not be right. I worked with a consultant that was working for the Navy, and that's what he said is the real number. But, you know, I'd much rather, let's not build new infrastructure. Let's keep that tenant here with our local community, with our port that, you know, that keeps that money in our local hands. But so I don't know where they're going with that. I've heard some rumblings that people aren't happy with the current plan, so maybe they'll come back. Right now the Hornbeck boats are right there at our port. Once again, those are the vessels that they're talking about. So, and we're in a scenario of declining revenues because of the timber industry, because bigger industries that bought out one of our companies, Straits Marine. They probably won't have as much dockage here because they own their own assets elsewhere. And we've lost 9 tenants. We, have probably going to lose another one, but we need to aggressively challenge this and take it on and market the hell out of all these assets and, act like a business and be really concerned and not feel like, well, we got 20 million in reserves, it's fine, it's no big deal. I want that to remain for capital projects for businesses so we can attract businesses and we can grow current businesses. So those are some, I'd like the community to, if you agree with me, come out and echo that, because I am one lone voice to some degree right now, and I'm a bit of a rabble-rouser and challenging the status quo. And so I'm reaching out to you so that you can, if you agree with those kind of things, come state your opinion and tell the commission how you feel.